I also, Mr. Chairman, I had some, we heard about the New York Times article. I have a second New York Times article I'd like to submit for the record. My migrant children were put to work, and the United States ignored the warnings. And Mr. Thompson is exactly correct. 3 days.
Without objection.
3 days after, or after 72 hours, those children are turned over to the Department of Health and Human Services. And the issue there has been the throughput then became so critical. Get those kids in and get them out quickly. And you heard references to Secretary Becerra saying this could be a Henry Ford type assembly line. In this article from the New York Times, Susan Rice is quoted as saying, this is BS. These kids are coming here just because they're, this is BS, Mrs. Rice wrote. What is leading to voluntary separation is our generosity to unaccompanied children. I mean, that is pretty harsh. And that is in this administration. That was a domestic policy advisor until a week and a half ago in this administration. So I do want this to be made part of the record. And then as part of a hearing that we held in the Oversight Investigations on Energy and Commerce, which does have jurisdiction over the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the Inspector General came into that hearing, and they had prepared a report from the, and I would also like to submit for the record the Office of Inspector General operational challenges within ORR and the ORR emergency intake site at Fort Bliss hindered case management for children.
Without objection.
So on page 15 of this report, headline is the Office of Refugee Resettlement issued field guidance that removes certain steps of the sponsor screening process across ORR facilities, potentially increasing children's risk of release to unsafe sponsors. Subparagraph, according to federal field specialist supervisors, some ORR field guidance issued from March of 2021 through June of 2021 was developed without adequate input from ORR staff with expertise in child welfare. Well, let me translate that for you. Originally, ORR could only release children in their custody to family members or close relatives after appropriate vetting. But they changed the guidance. It was a field guidance that was issued in March of 2021 where they didn't need to take those protective steps anymore. So I actually believe, Chairman McCall, that 85,000 number that you referenced, when we actually know that number is going to be significantly higher because Secretary Mayorkas unilaterally changed by field guidance, not something that went through the Administrative Procedures Act, certainly not something that came through a legislative committee in regular order, but by field guidance said, we don't need to do this work anymore, and we can send these kids wherever the heck it is we want. And that is what has led to the crisis that the New York Times has published these articles. We have to have a secure border. After we have a secure border, we can talk about any number of immigration reforms any one of us would like to see, but we do not have a secure border. And in fact, the border is becoming less secure by the hour, and over these next 48 hours, again, I submit we are going to see a crisis of really unheralded proportions. So again, Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask that both of these articles.
Doctor, can I respond to that?
Yes,
because I have to
you
say,
would.
this is what worries me. These children that come in are being sent to stash houses, essentially. And I've lived this for a long time, but this is the worst. And so they're not vetted. The sponsors aren't vetted properly. You got 10, maybe 20 kids going to the same house. This is not a mom and pop thing. Not a mom and pop shop, really. It's a trafficking organization that's happening inside this country right now. And it's the children that are being affected by this policy.
And if I recall correctly, it was the Houston Chief of Police that said, not to Homeland Security, but ORR, you're releasing all of these children to the same address. And you don't even know where that is. And there was no vetting of the process. And Secretary Mayorkas issued field guidance, not going through normal administrative procedures, not going through the legislative branch. Here's the field guidance, we can just kind of send them wherever we want. And that is nuts. And we're asking for trouble. We're asking for more disasters. But as bad as it is today, a week from now, there's no telling what the numbers are that we're going to see. We all know they're going up. They're high now, but they're going to get higher, and more people are going to be hurt. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.